Hello everyone and welcome. This video is sponsored by Alpine, who kindly invited me to come check out the Alpine A110R in Miami and also attend the Formula 1 race. As you can imagine, I had to think long and hard about whether to say yes. Especially because the A110 is a car that checks nearly all the boxes of what I consider to be the perfect formula. Small and compact, genuinely lightweight, a relatively soft and relatively long travel suspension, and to further separate itself from those already in this very exclusive territory, a mid-mounted engine with real torque sending power to the rear wheels. Now, unfortunately, my ideal formula isn't all that popular in the country I live in, and alas, we don't get the A110 here in the States, something I've wanted to happen for many years. But you can imagine the joy I felt knowing I'd get to try out the most extreme variant here on American shores, ahead of the Miami GP, and in the company of some pretty talented drivers. So let's dive into the engineering of the A110R, starting with weight, as it's fundamentally the most critical aspect of this car's design. The standard A110 tips the scales at 2,429 pounds. Admittedly, that's when optioned as low as possible, as it goes as high as 2,513 pounds fully equipped. The A110R drops that under 2,400 pounds. And lightweight packages are always welcome in my opinion, but they're often a little insulting, as manufacturers talk about how important it is to remove weight, only for you to find out that the car's curb weight is 4,000 pounds. Like, cool I guess, but in this case, we're taking an already very light car and pulling real weight out of it. Compared to the A110S, the R removes about 75 pounds of weight. Carbon fiber wheels help remove nearly 28 pounds of unsprung rotational mass. Carbon fiber seats pull out 11 pounds, paired with a 6-point harness that takes out another 3 pounds. The carbon fiber hood takes out nearly 6 pounds versus the aluminum hood it replaces, and at the back of the car, you'll notice there's no rear window. This entirely carbon fiber rear window, meaning yes, it's opaque, saves nearly 9 pounds, with a cascading effect as you can now remove the rearview mirror, the engine bay partition glass behind the driver, as well as the engine cover. Now, while a car being lightweight is rare these days, without context, having low mass alone isn't all that impressive. And in America, unfortunately, this benefit is often left overlooked, presumably by those who haven't yet discovered the joy of cornering, because let's face it, by modern standards, lightweight cars are often a bit gutless. Fundamentally, pulling power out of a car is necessary in order to make it lighter. More power requires a bigger engine. It requires a beefier transmission to handle the torque, with larger differentials and drive shafts. More power means you need more cooling, so you get a larger radiator, bigger fans, and more coolant. More power means you need more stopping power, increasing the size and weight of the braking components. All of this is to say, when a manufacturer sets out to design a lightweight car, high horsepower is fundamentally at odds with the overall goal. So the cars in the lightweight category, in my opinion anything coming in under about 3,000 pounds, these cars get dismissed so frequently because they don't have the power to compete in terms of acceleration with similarly priced competitors. That's one of the things that's so cool about this Alpine. It doesn't fit that narrative. With about 300 horsepower and weighing under 2,400 pounds, the power-to-weight ratio dips into a territory that lets it compete not only around corners, but in a straight line as well. Alpine claims a 0 to 100 km per hour, or 62 mile per hour, in just 3.9 seconds. It's genuinely quick, in part thanks to a small 1.8-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder. Power is up from the standard A110 thanks to an additional 0.4 bar or about 6 psi of turbo boost, though it's still quicker than the A110S even with equal power. Again, this goes back to the weight reduction, and importantly, the carbon fiber wheels, since rotational weight has a large impact on acceleration. So again, 0 to 60 in the 3s, but with a 1.8 liter. And it is worth mentioning, from the very beginning the car was designed to be limited to a 1.8 liter engine. Any design is about choosing where you want to compromise, and for what reasons. In the case of the A110, sacrifices were made to enable the overall goal to succeed, create a lightweight, nimble chassis paired with a predictable and well-handling suspension. That means a double wishbone suspension in both the front and the back, as double wishbone suspensions minimize your camber changes throughout the length of wheel travel, optimizing grip and providing predictable handling. The challenge is that double wishbone suspensions are wide and encroach in towards the center of the car. Even more so when, like Alpine, you want a relatively long travel suspension, which now means even longer control arms. It's a packaging compromise in the name of good handling. Your front trunk is smaller to allow room for the A-arms. And again, your engine size is limited. There's only so much space you have to fit a laterally mounted inline 4-cylinder. This is part of why there's no manual transmission offered. A dual clutch transmission provided better packaging in the space requirements, allowing for the widest suspension control arms as possible. And though I'd love to see a manual transmission offered, it's a beautiful thing to see this suspension methodology implemented. Double wishbone suspensions are increasingly rare, and seemingly even more rare are sports car suspensions with significant travel and a relatively soft ride. There's a mentality that stiffer means better, that it means more grip, but in real-world road conditions this is often untrue. Regardless, many marketing teams have leaned into this, promoting the stiffness and flat ride of their road cars. But comfort and grip don't have to be at odds with each other with a properly designed suspension. Since the A110R is a road-legal car but designed to be used at the racetrack, of course, the suspension is firmed up in anticipation of smoother road surfaces. The A110S is significantly stiffer than the base A110, so there's not a huge jump in stiffness going from S to R. The front and rear suspensions both get 10% stiffer springs, with the front and rear sway bars 10% and 25% stiffer respectively. This makes a very meaningful impact in how much roll the body of the car has while cornering. It's about 30% less roll than the A110 and 15% less roll than the A110S, with a roll rate of just 2.3 degrees per G of lateral acceleration, down from 3.3 and 2.7 degrees per G. Another reason for the stiffer springs here is to allow for a lower ride height. It's 10 millimeters lower than the A110S, and at the track, you can lower it another 10 millimeters thanks to the threaded shock bodies. The dampers are also adjustable, with 20 clicks of adjustment to provide a range of compression and rebound. Finally, the stiffer springs help compensate for this model's additional downforce. So the standard A110 starts out with a 44-56 front-rear weight distribution. The A110S with the Aero package adds about 300 pounds of downforce on top of this, with the downforce nearly matching the weight distribution profile. The A110R takes a different strategy. There's similar downforce, but it's shifted rearward, with a balance Alpine says favors greater stability in turns and at high speeds. And while it achieves similar downforce to the A110S Pack Aero, in its lowered track position, it does so with 5% less drag, and more impressively, equal drag to the standard A110. This means better efficiency, better acceleration, and helps it achieve a higher top speed of 177 miles per hour, the fastest of the A110 variants. Starting at the front, the downforce story begins with the carbon fiber lip, carried over from the A110S. Moving up, the front hood is designed partially to reduce drag, but also to redirect air over the front windscreen at high speeds, reducing the pressure on the glass. Underneath, you have the A110's standard integral flat floor, with carbon fiber side skirts now added to widen the flat bottom of the car, improving downforce and reducing undercarriage turbulence. Looking at the side of the car, you'll also notice the front wheel is more open than the rear. The fronts are optimized for better brake cooling, leaving a more open design since the front axle handles most of the braking versus the rear wheels, which are more enclosed, optimized to reduce drag. And a quick comment on the rear brakes. The Alpine A110 was actually the first car to use Brembo's all-aluminum ECS caliper. These calipers have a built-in electronic parking brake, which also serves as a failsafe, fully able to stop the car in case the hydraulic system fails, and importantly in the context of the A110, being aluminum instead of cast iron, they remove 5.5 pounds of unsprung weight from the rear axle. So at the back, you'll notice the rear diffuser sweeping up, helping to accelerate the airflow underneath the car and thus improve downforce while also reducing drag, working hand in hand with the rear wing above. Interestingly, the blade of the rear wing is the same as the A110S, but with some seemingly simple changes to have dramatically improved its effectiveness. It's been moved back 18 millimeters, raised 46 millimeters, the angle adjusted, and now uses swan neck mounts. The underside, or low pressure side of the wing, is less disturbed with these mounts and thus more effective. And again, what's really impressive here is that we've got over 300 pounds of downforce over the standard A110, and yet with essentially no drag penalty. Okay, so a few comments on what it was like to drive, as I had the opportunity to hop in both the A110 GT with the standard longer travel, softer suspension, as well as the A110R, the track-focused variant with stickier tires. The GT had a very joyful, lively behavior with lots of movement, but all in a manner that never made you feel lacking in control. While cornering in the A110R, it was immediately apparent that it rode flatter and with more grip thanks to the tire, suspension, and aero upgrades. The overall operating window is simply greater, quicker acceleration, tighter control, and a wider traction circle. Regardless, there's a playfulness that both cars have that I'm always reminded exists when I sit in a lightweight car. And let me be clear, there's no doubt that bloated, heavy sports cars today can have incredible handling, thanks to modern engineering and equally impressive tires. But there's a seriousness that comes along with it. There's a rigid set of rules that you must follow when driving heavy cars, and if you follow the rules, everything goes right. But if you make a mistake, the penalty is harsher, and you end up losing control. It's almost the opposite in light cars like this Alpine. Mistakes are almost rewarding, as recovering is easy and simple, never fully penalizing you for exceeding the tire's limits. This predictable, lively behavior at the limit puts a smile on your face. At least it did mine. A huge thank you to Alpine for letting me be among the very few to drive this car in America, having me out to the Miami GP, and for sponsoring this video. And I'll close out with a brief clip of Tom Bloomquist showing me how to actually drive in the A110 GT4 car. Thanks Tom for the unforgettable laps. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below.